All right, and welcome back to Letters of Intent. My name is Pankaj Raval. I'm the founder of Carbon Law Group. I'm today joined by my co-host, Sahil Chaudhary. Sahil, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I have returned again as your ambassador to the summer speaker series that A16Z has been hosting in LA. They've been hosting different venture capital firms, different founders, operators in the venture capital space. And this event was really exciting and really interesting.
I'm really excited to hear about this. Yes, and Sahil, I know these are coveted tickets, not easy to get. They sell out fast, so it's great to hear that you've been able to go to these events because I know there's a lot of really interesting and insightful knowledge shared. So tell us a little bit more about this recent event you went to.
So, this event, we had two speakers, Marcus Stroud and Brandon Allen, who were talking about Sequence Equity, their firm that's investing and has found a niche in sports media and digital infrastructure. And what I came away from this talk with was an understanding that college sports are now this area that's ripe for venture capital in a way that they never were before.
Fascinating. Fascinating. And what led to this? Why is college sports all of a sudden such a hot area for investment?
Money, 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 money. So here's what's going on. College sports, you can now pay athletes. So there are a lot of rules around this about how can you pay athletes? What are the compliance issues? There are state laws, there are state considerations, there are reporting considerations. There are a lot of ways that you need to ring fence this so that it's compliant. And basically the talk was really informative both from an opportunity perspective, but it was also informative just when you look at entrepreneurs and how they think. So Marcus and Brandon were talking about how when they founded Sequence Equity, they first wanted to make investments in the NBA and NFL, but they weren't able to. They didn't have the minimum commitments that were required to get into those super established spaces. And here comes along this new change with college sports, and it's difficult and complicated to figure out how to structure this. And that level of distress and change for college sports and the need for a massive amount of new capital opens up this opportunity for Sequence Equity. So I think right off the bat, I just want to say to all of our entrepreneurs who are listening, I just feel like that's a really important lesson, which is, sometimes in super established spaces, it's hard to find a foothold. But when there's a change, when there's some kind of regulatory change or some kind of market shift, that's where a new player can come in because you're willing to do the work that maybe some more established players aren't willing to do. And this stuff's complicated. It took Sequence Equity and firms like it to figure out how to make this work.
Yeah. You're right, Sal. It's so interesting, right? Because I think prior to 2021, 2020, when a lot of these laws changed, there was a prohibition against paying college athletes. And actually, we hear there were these stories of college athletes and also agents, assistant coaches being prosecuted for kickbacks, for payments to athletes. And we kind of knew it was happening on a kind of a low key level. I would remember in college seeing some athletes driving around in super nice cars, and there's ways people are trying to get around it, but it is always with that massive risk. And all of a sudden, based on a variety of cases, it's been challenged for a while that these colleges have been making billions and billions of dollars off these athletes, and these athletes are still sometimes struggling to eat, and their family maybe lives in poverty. So, the question was, is it right to not pay athletes for the value and that they bring to these schools? So based on kind of what you learned at this event, what are the opportunities right now in this space and what's so hot about it? And what is Sequence Equity doing to really leverage their skill set?
Pankaj, what I learned is that I am going to need to start doing business development with seniors in high school because they're
Yes.
turning into multi-millionaires. Okay. That is where the money is at now. You get in, if you are a successful college athlete, you are going to need a family office before you graduate. That's what I've learned. So if you are looking for representation, give us a call.
Yes.
But to kind of speak to the capital companies listening, the VC funds that are listening, here's a Sequence's model, and here's the model that VC firms are employing. Basically, here's what's going on. Okay, the departments need new predictable capital beyond the donor dollars. That's not enough anymore. You've got to pay these athletes astronomical figures here. And the fans are hyper local, they're loyal. And so there's a big opportunity here. Regional, state, media brands want to monetize via membership, sponsorships, events. So how do you do it? Put on, everyone who's listening, put on your legal thinking cap. Basically what you do is you form a JV. that JV structure operates to isolate the commercial assets, the media, the sponsorship, the memberships, the ticketing. But remember, colleges are nonprofits. You can't own a college. You can't buy equity in a college. So that's why you need this JV. You also need this JV because if you're investing in an entity, you want it to be bankruptcy remote. And you want to be able to measure the lift, measure what is your result when you're investing in these programs. What's the improvement in watch time? What's the improvement in renewal rates, in attendance? And so, what you're going to see is this whole ecosystem explode with capital. And this is a huge opportunity for capital companies, is a huge opportunity for athletes, huge opportunity for universities. It's a huge opportunity for law firms like us who are
Yeah.
very well versed in doing brand deals. I mean, at Carbon, we really have a very thriving brand deal practice, which is related to our IP practice, copyrights, trademarks, and that ties into a major issue, Pankaj, that I know you're an expert in, which is name, image, likeness opportunities and the legal issues that come with that. So
Right.
I'm going to put you in the hot seat here, Pankaj.
Sure.
You are now the GC at one of these universities. You're seeing these athletes come up like Cooper Flag. You're seeing these issues where you have these stars, but you've got to maintain this balance of you're an athletic program and now you're also operating this media venture. How do we deal with this complex web of name, image, and likeness issues?
Yeah, it's a fascinating world, Sahil. It's really moving quickly. The laws are always changing, because this is fairly recent that this all happened. That the kind of floodgates opened for money to come into college athletics and go to college athletes like we've never seen before. So now we're seeing, Cooper Flag, for example, made well, it's not been audited, but they say that he made $28 million in one
Wow.
one year. That's more than any starting salary he could have made in the NBA just his freshman year at Duke because of all the hype around him and all the NIL contracts he signed, right? So he worked with companies like New Balance, like Fanatics, like Gatorade, AT&T. These are all major companies that are paying him big bucks. And the things that schools need to realize is that you can still have deals with these companies. For example, Duke is a Nike school, but the reality is that now, if you want to attract top talent who also want to get paid based on these NIL deals, there's got to be flexibility. You got to make sure your contracts allow for that because you don't want to breach a contract if you're bringing on a player and now they sign deals with maybe a competitor to a company that you've got to deal with. For example, Nike and New Balance are competitors, but they were able to navigate that situation where now Cooper Flag could still wear a Nike uniform during the games, but then still, advertise and provide his influencer services for New Balance outside of Duke. So it's an interesting kind of coexistence that we were looking at here of these brands that are sponsoring schools versus brands that are sponsoring players, and it's continuing to evolve.
So that's a great point. I mean, you've got influencer posts, you've got, and today you've got TikTok, Instagram. I mean, who knows what the next, name, image, likeness play is? I mean, it could be an avatar that like you take that athlete's image, you're putting it in a video game. Who owns those rights? Who owns the money that's coming out of that? So I think,
And there's been
as
lawsuits about all this, Sahil. So
yeah,
it's been interesting. Yeah.
yeah. So as this space gets more and more complicated by AI, by digital kind of avatars that are forming, and you have these major corporations that have an interest now, and now you're going to have the advent of these capital companies. I think that's a very interesting point. You're going to have colleges who might have deals with sponsors, then you have players who are going to need, who are going to be looking for deals themselves. Is there any sort of anything that a player should be worried about? Let's say they're looking at contracts. Is there anything specifically that a player needs to be concerned about? Any provisions that, the alarm bells should go off?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of areas that I think players should be cognizant of and also have competent counsel looking over these contracts because we've seen examples where players have been barred from playing at a school because they signed an agreement that effectively made them a professional where they played for a professional sports organization and that now makes them ineligible to play for a college and an amateur organization. Once you go pro, it's very hard to go back. That's why there's all these rules and regulations around testing the waters when you're looking to, in terms of going pro. There's a lot of rules and regulations around that, what you can and can't do to see if, okay, could you get a good deal if you went pro, but then, still you have to declare it, you have to, file different paperwork. So these are all things that student athletes need to be aware of, and to make sure that they sign deals that don't put them in a place where they're barred from playing at a school because all of a sudden they signed a deal that made them go pro. So if the deal they're signing has proper guardrails around it that restricts the payments related to his name, image, likeness. Okay, that's what the law allows. You need to be licensing your name, image, likeness, influencer, purposes, ad, things like that. That works. But once start maybe say playing for another team that is somewhat professional, or another like a G League or whatever it might be, now you've gone pro, and now you could be ineligible to, and you could actually invalidate all these NIL deals as well.
So there's a lot of conversation around an athlete's right of publicity consent. What is the right of publicity?
Yeah, it's a great question, Sahil. So NIL again is a name, image, likeness. So that's what we're talking about here when we're talking about NIL deals. And the right of publicity essentially is giving the party you're agreeing with the right to use your name, your image, your likeness in a public way to essentially advertise services, advertise goods for generally a limited period of time, but it could be in perpetuity. But you have to think about, okay, what's the scope, what's the limits, what can they do with it? A lot now, you mentioned AI. Can they use your name, image, likeness and turn it into an AI avatar? These are things you want to look at, because to what extent are you granting these people, whoever you're doing deals with, rights to use your image without your consent, right? Like, okay, so you're marketing for New Balance. Now can New Balance then take your image and then remarket it based on AI and in multiple different ways? You generally want to make sure you have rights and control over how your image is used. So these are all things you got to be aware of, and issues that have come up in the past where if people are not paying attention, if they don't have good counsel, they can make serious mistakes that could really jeopardize their career. So this is where we really come in and can help guide our clients to make sure that, hey, let's understand how your name, image, likeness is being used. What are the rights you're actually conferring, so you can make sure that you are not giving up more than you anticipated and potentially jeopardizing future streams of revenue.
I think that's very good advice. If you are an athlete and you're looking to cash in on your immense talents, be sure to read your contracts carefully. Get counsel involved early so that you don't miss out the opportunity on maximizing your earning potential. I mean, there are a lot of, you've got your school supported sponsorships, but you are also going to get a lot of offers that are out of game related opportunities. And you want to be able to handle those carefully. And there are a lot of complicated rights. I mean, we don't even realize copyright is a very complicated, or name, image, likeness, copyright, IP. These are all very complicated parts of the law with very specific rules that aren't always intuitive. And
Right.
so if you are an athlete, you want to get counsel involved early, reviewing your agreements so that you don't miss out on any revenue opportunity. And I think this is a very exciting time for capital. It's a very exciting time for venture capital. It's a very exciting time for sports and brand deals. And we, Carbon Law Group, we are here to support you as you sign your deals and you take your risks.
Thanks a lot, Sahil. It's been great. And if anyone has any questions, please reach out. We're always happy to chat and discuss these issues in greater detail. We've really just scratched the surface today about NIL and what it means in the context of college sports. This is an ever-evolving area. You have to be compliant and aware of state and federal laws. So there's a lot of moving pieces here, and we'd love to be a partner for the growth of all of these student athletes and making sure that they receive fair compensation for their name, image, and likeness, and continue to support their career and maybe their families.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.